Hi guys, welcome back. We are working today on a 2004 V70. The temperature here is around about 27 degrees and it's currently 8 o'clock in the evening. It's been over 30 here today, which is unusual, but I guess in the scale of temperatures around the world that's probably not very much, but it's certainly not what we're used to here. And all day my blower has been putting out warm air. Now a couple of weeks ago I figured out what the problem was, and it is that the temperature sensor under the driver's wing mirror believes that the external temperature is currently around about minus 111 degrees C, so I have ordered a replacement sensor to go in that wing mirror. Now the job itself to take the wing mirror off and replace that sensor is straightforward enough, but there's a few tricks and tips you need. So if you are experiencing weird symptoms, if your air conditioning isn't working properly and you've had the gas recharged and all the other various bits and bobs, this video could well be for you. It's an easy job, easy fix. This part wasn't expensive, it was about £17 including VAT tax there, so yeah, this might just be the answer to your problems. It could well be that your car believes it is so cold outside that it doesn't actually need to engage the clutch on the air conditioning to bring the internal temperature down to your target. In this case my target is 16 to 18 degrees. So let's see how this goes. Okay, so the first job is to remove this plastic cover. There are three clips in this, just ball ends that clip into plastic receivers behind it. There's one here and one here, so you need to apply pressure evenly around the outside to pop them all out. If you try and do it just from one side, then it's going to break. There you go, 1, 2, 3. Keep that cover in a safe place. Oh, there is a piece of foam behind it as well, which helps with noise dampening. Of course that fits in there like that. Okay, so you'll notice there's a 13mm nut here. This bolt goes into the end of the wing mirror itself, and that's what holds it in place. We will be loosening that off, but not just yet. First we have to deal with the connection from the electrics in the wing mirror. Of course it's electrically adjusting and heated, that go into the loom in the door and connect ultimately onto the door control module. So we need to take the inside panel off the door. Now this is one of the easier internal door panels to remove in the range of vehicles on the P2 platform, because it's held in place with a series of very convenient push pins rather than clips inside the door. Need a bone tool of some description just to clip in behind this panel. Again, be very careful, start at the bottom right and just prise this off. Just pull that forward, again work it loose all the way along, and when you get to the very top it should just pop out. There you go, so you've got a connector at the top, one at the bottom, and they just fit into this hole and this hole, so you're kind of pulling down and forwards, that kind of angle, but you do need to loosen it off at the sides first, because there are a number of clips, as you can see here. This piece, these pieces rather, lock against these clips along the side, so you just need to break them all loose one by one. Inside here we have a Torx T25, inside here we have another Torx T25, so the next job is to remove those. Sorry, whacked you there. So that's the two T25s loosened. In fact, one fell out, the other one's still in the hole. Keep those in a safe place. Next we have to deal with the push pins. Okay, so these are the push pins. There are 8 of these located around the outside of the plastic panel. They're easy enough to find, so I'm not going to bother filming each one of them, but what you do with these is you push the middle pin in and that releases it. You can then use again a plastic bone tool to release them, and the way that these work, it's a bit like a roll plug. To fit them, you squish that into the hole, a bit like a rivet really, and the pen pushes into the middle, and what you'll see is that when it locates flat, it pushes the sides out. Okay, so that is the located position. To release it, you push that centre in even further and then just pull the pen out. To reset it, just stick the pen back in the top, and then to refit it afterwards, all we're going to do very literally is stick these back in the holes thus, and just push the tops in. Simple. So I'm going to pop the rest of those out now, and then the door will be loose enough to just lift off. So with the last of the clips removed, the two Torx T25s removed, this panel now just lifts out, lift it up and over the latch, and just bring it forwards. Now down inside the door here, this is the clip we need to remove. This front middle section here just pushes in, and then we just pull that back. At this point we don't need anything else to happen inside the door panel here, so I'm just going to hang this back on. Don't need to take off any of the other 3 clip connectors, or disconnect the door mechanism or whatever. We can just put this back, waiting to refit this back into that loom afterwards. Okay, so the only thing remaining to do now in order to remove the wing mirror is to remove this 13mm nut. And there we go. So holding on to it from the outside here, it just lifts forward. Be very careful when feeding this cable through. Don't want to break that. So there it is. There is the temperature sensor in question, mounted on the bottom of the arm that goes out to the wing mirror itself. I know that this is working, arguably to a degree, on the grounds that when I previously tested it, it registered an increase in temperature when I had my hand on the sensor, and then cooled off again when I removed it. So I know that it's actually doing something, just not in the right range. Now this is an NTC resistor, I believe, negative temperature coefficient. What that means is, as it gets colder, the resistance increases, so high resistance is interpreted as extreme cold. There was a recall on a subsequent generation of these cars, and the recall was due to a leak in this housing that actually meant that there was a drip that corroded the terminals in this junction block. Lots of wing mirrors got changed by Volvo between 2005 and 2008. This shouldn't be affected, but could be, if there is corrosion in the terminals on the wires in here, for instance. That would be interpreted by the engine management system as extreme cold, which is certainly one of the symptoms that we're seeing. It's registering minus 111 degrees C, as I said. So let's take this apart and see what we're dealing with. Okay, so here we are with the new sensor. Before I do anything else, anything invasive into the wing mirror anyway, I'm just going to make sure that this is the right size for the job. Yeah, there it is. That's got to come out. Now, the other thing that has to happen here is that we have to bring the wire for it through this grommet. Effectively, this is a sheet of rubber. It can be a bit of a pain to get these off, but they're held in around these white pegs. I just need to kind of work it off. Let's see what's going on. These are quite a tight fit around these connectors, so I'm just really loosening this off here as I start to pretend, just to see if there's anything really obvious. There is a bit of corrosion in here. That would certainly suggest that we could be looking at corrosion on the terminals here. Let's see what happens. Okay, you can see in here and up there these white cables. Now, the white cables themselves that join in here are these. You will notice that there is a little clip arrangement that holds these nice and tight in the terminal block. Okay, so what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to pop those out in the old ones to be able to remove them and replace them with this nice shiny new ones. Okay, so we need to get those white wires out of this terminal block, connecting block. The two white wires go into the middle two connectors on this bank of 4 here, so I know that those are the ones we need to work on, and we're going to need to use a special tool to help us to get these out. Now, just using the tool down the end ain't going to get you where you need to be. Notice at this end, that little T section, little T shape there, you push up on that and that releases the lock mechanism. Then we're going to use the special tool I mentioned, which is a straightened out paper clip. Stick that in the big hole at the top and that releases the cable. Doesn't matter which way around they go, as long as they go back into those two holes. Oop. This one's not quite so easy. They don't come out easily, just give them a bit of a wiggle. Now looking at these, they don't look too badly corroded. Nice and shiny. In fact, this one's pretty clean. Might be a little bit of grime in the end. Not going to worry too much about that. It's coming out anyway. But the important thing to remember is that this particular sensor has been on since 2004, so it's served its time. Doesn't owe me anything. It's probably just time for a nice fresh one. What we're going to do to remove this, you need to be a little bit careful with this so that you don't damage the bottom of the wing mirror, although if you do scratch it and scrape it, no one will ever see. Just going to use a normal flat bladed screwdriver to loosen this off. And again, it doesn't really matter too much if I actually damage this getting it out, on the grounds that there's a nice fresh one going in. What we have is a couple of clips at each end, so just need to get a better purchase. There we go. To pop that out, as I say, clip at one end, 2 clips at the other. So this wire here needs to feed through the grommet. We can basically just pull that through from the other side. And then feed it up and through. Remember the path that goes through this hole here, alongside the other wire, and feeds up through the end. It's a good idea if you're doing this to just put the other one straight back through whilst it's fresh in mind. Okay, and there is absolutely no harm in just popping this in right now. Leaving it in place. I'm just going to have to give that a bit of force. There we go. Okay, so that's now firmly clicked in place, and we can get on with rerouting the wire. So the wire now goes through this hole in the rubber grommet. Okay, there we go. And on the other side, remember which holes we pulled it out of. Very, very important to remember that. Also remember which way up these wires go in. Okay, so the mechanism that locks them in place needs to be at the top. So we pop those in. They both just click in place. You probably can't hear it, but I can feel it. And then we lock them down with the locking mechanism. Give them a tug, make sure they're still good. And that's good to refit on the car. Simple as that. So, very faithful. Yet another use for a straightened out paper clip. Recommend using the nice big ones, by the way, rather than little dinky ones, although if all you have are small ones, try and find a plastic coated one. You want to try and fill that hole as much as you can to spread the clips inside that are going to actually release the cable, the wire. Okay, that's us. So now it's going to pull these wires back through, reposition this. Well, I can only assume that this is supposed to be a waterproofing shield of some description, although there is definitely water ingress, possibly condensation I suppose, that's caused this corrosion on the aluminium piece here. But yeah, we'll let that go for now. Pull this back through, refit it back into its location, and then we're good to go and slap that back onto the car. And the process for replacement is exactly the same as the process for removal. One 13mm nut holds this back in place on the side of the car. The push pins literally push in place, push the centres back flush with the surface on the inner door panel. Plastic panel clips back in place. Job's a good one. Can't go wrong with refitting this, it only fits in one way, so let's go and do that now. Top tip for you when you're putting the two Torx T25s back in, the top hole for some reason has a slot carved out of it on this particular moulding. You can see it down at the bottom there, and that is plenty big enough for the screw to fall through down inside the door mechanism, and then you have to take the whole thing off again to extract the screw. So when you're putting this back in, you want to line that hole. So I'm just using an old Kit Kat wrapper here. So I'm using the back of the Torx bit here, wrap the wrapper around it. I'm just going to slide that in there just to stop there being any possibility of the screw itself falling down into the door through that notch. I have no idea why it's there, but one of the very few pieces of poor design on this vehicle. Anyway, there you go, that's the workaround, just something to cover that hole temporarily whilst you refit the screw. Just clips back in place. Remember, it slides in on those and then locates with a number of clips along the edge. So I'll locate that. snap it in. Job done. And then the last piece is the plastic cover. Make sure you don't forget to put the foam damper in. Just keeps the road noise down. And that's it, job done. Let's go for a test drive, see if that's made a difference. Well, I'm just pulling onto the dual carriageway here, guys, and what a difference. Absolutely unbelievable. It's almost too cold, and I don't like to be the one that complains about it being too hot and then complains about it being too cold. Goodness me, 16 degrees is all it is. Oh, what have we got here? The boy racer's just pulled alongside me. Let's see what he's got. Not as much as an 18-year-old Volvo estate, it would seem. Where are you now, asshole? Ah, dear. Love it. Always surprises him when I'm only racing to the speed limit. Here he goes. Yeah. Good man yourself. Full focus. Gotta love it. Ah, dear. What a day. Looking forward to tomorrow, I've got to say. A little bit of cool air between jobs is going to make all the difference, and for an 18 quid component, I am chuffed to bits with that. Well, it is 9 o'clock now. Still 24 degrees here in Northern Ireland, which is most unusual, I guess, in the grander scheme of things. Not that big a deal, but still very, very unusual for Northern Ireland. And the difference in performance of this aircon is frankly remarkable. It's a different car. Almost uncomfortable to have it on full volume, so I've had to turn it up a bit. So it was giving better than 16. I've had to turn it up to 18, which, given that it's been blowing warm air for the last couple of weeks through what has been quite a heat wave, it's a very pleasing outcome for a 17 quid replacement component. Now you can, if you want to, if you have access to a VIDA computer, you can plug in and recalibrate a lot of components on these vehicles. So I guess, I could have taken it to a Volvo dealership and paid the £90 to plug in and get those values reset. But given that the part cost me 17 quid and I was able to diagnose with a cheap semi-pro diagnostic tool just by looking at the data stream from the driver's door module, that the sensor was defective, it's a no-brainer really. If I had changed the sensor and it was still reading minus 111, well, I'd suck it up and find some other way of hacking VIDA. So I'm damned if I'm going to be paying that kind of money to the dealership. It is what it is, but there's some things I'm just not prepared to do, especially given that alternatives are available. Just need to have a go. So yeah, there you go, guys. The problem with this car was that the external ambient temperature was being misinterpreted by the sensor for one reason or another. We discounted corrosion, so it must have been just that the sensor itself had stopped working, but it was being misinterpreted as very, very cold, minus 111 degrees C, and so the engine management system was determining that in fact it didn't have to work particularly hard to get the temperature down to a target of minus 16, minus 18, and as a result it wasn't engaging the clutch on the aircon. It's a pretty typical problem. There are a number of temperature sensors in this vehicle. There's one in the dashboard that measures the cabin temperature, there's one in the wing mirror that measures the outside ambient temperature, but oftentimes the one in the dashboard blocks up, just a bit of fluff on the sensor. You don't need to change them very often, just give them a good clean, and that sort's made. Just put a vacuum cleaner on the front of them, does a great job of pulling any fluff away from the sensor that might be insulating it. But in this particular case, problem solved, and that after the couple of days I've had there trotting around in the heat with warm air blowing out the dash has been that's quite a relief. I'm looking forward to work over the next few days, but we'll see how it goes. In the meantime, I'm going to potter along here. Just a couple of other things I need to just listen out for. There's a bit of a clank coming from the front when I'm pulling away here. I suspect because of my somewhat aggressive driving that is probably the front torsion bar where it connects the lower part of the engine onto the front of the subframe assembly. Very easy piece to replace that. There's a quick fix as well, actually, an excellent video by Rob showing you how you can use an old cycle inner tube to do a patch job on those that's perfectly adequate to keep them rolling in service. It's about a £57 component, so anyway, that's one for another day. I'm listening out for a drop link. I've changed the one on the XC90 on the near side. It's the same setup underneath the V70 as well. Over speed bumps and so on, I hear a little bit of a clank from the back end. Now it might be something in the boot. I've got a few jacks and so on in there, but there's a bit of a noise. So every once in a while it's a good idea to turn off your fan, turn off your radio and just listen to the car, listen to what it's trying to tell you, and particularly listen to the direction the noises are coming from. So there it is. I'm just going to potter around for a bit. It's been a very hot and sweaty day and I am loving the coolness that this aircon is now providing. So thanks very much for watching. I will catch you again soon, no doubt. Yellow car. I'll catch you again soon. If this kind of content's something that you're interested in, please don't forget to hit subscribe, and if you click the like button, that'll let YouTube know that I'm doing a half decent job and will recommend my content to a lot more users. So that'd be very much appreciated if you do me a solid and hit that like button. That's about it for today. So a few more things coming up in the very near future. Bit of a road trip next week that I'm really looking forward to. So we'll see if anything comes up on along the journey there, and I'll be having a look at a few other vehicles along the way. So take my computer in the boot and let's see what we see. The joys of being a mobile. There we go. Anyway, so thanks very much for watching. I'll leave you there. Take it easy, and see you next time. Cheers.